Speaking of that, not to keep Mad Dog and Mr. Late Night silent here. Speaking of that neck of the woods, Carolina yesterday, the number one player in South Carolina is in, and the Gamecocks 2026 class is number 6 in the nation right now. They are racking up the talent.
Yeah, I mean, it's one of those things down the road when you dive in. I started diving into the 2026 class. I don't get into like the guys that are 2 years early, but all of a sudden last spring you started noticing, man, everybody's getting offered, and that's a good sign because in the state of South Carolina that hadn't been happening. A hunk of good players from the state don't get offered, don't get on the radar. And then, of course, they do rankings so stupidly early these days that it's like, nobody wants to be wrong. So they don't drop people. So it's hard to move up. Well, South Carolina as a state, everybody started getting offered and on the radar. There's 10, 15 guys. And I was like, well, it must be, logic dictates that that's probably a pretty good cycle, right? This kid, Currence, has been on the radar since his freshman year, though. He's always been considered the next great one out of South Pointe. He is the number one player right now in the state. I think with Gidron and Murph reclassifying, but he's always been good. He's top 100 prospect nationally. I don't always do player comparisons, but just this is probably a new recruit in some ways. Some of you are looking out for, unless you follow high school football in Rock Hill pretty close. Nick Hemmenwari would be the player comparison at this point. Ooh. And then there's another big safety that's about 6'4", up at north of the aforementioned Northwestern Trojans, JB, that's also got an offer from Carolina that's also good and kind of a freak athlete. So, Torian Gray, since he was at Virginia Tech, Virginia Tech had a long history of guys like Cam Chancellor and Jimmy Williams that were these big, freaky, tall corners. Our defensive backs in general, and this guy fits that mold. He's they love length. Torian Gray loves length, so does Clayton White. I mean, who doesn't? But big pickup. I didn't see this one coming. I thought South Carolina was in really good shape, like they normally are for South Pointe players. Second South Pointe kid in the class, offensive lineman Anthony Baxter, was an earlier commit. But 2026, when you look at it, it's certainly, just from a big picture standpoint, is a critical recruiting cycle for the Gamecocks because the talent and the depth in state player-wise has cycled up. So in other words, like where you're normally signing between 5 and 9 guys, 3 or 4 of them are these eval guys that work out pretty well, like your Judge Colliers and Nick Hemmenwaris, especially on defense. But then, you have your blue chippers, and, when this program was not good and there were no expectations back in the 90s, Tennessee and Florida State and North Carolina under Mack Brown the first time, and Georgia, and all these programs would cross the borders and come in and take the best players. South Carolina football would be different had they had Alex Barron and Chris Hope and Jeff Burris, who went to Notre Dame. I mean, you name them. And for the last 20 years, starting with Lou Holtz and kind of the Derek Watson commit in the class of 99, actually kind of helped chip away at all that. It became popular to stay in state. Clemson's helped with that to a certain extent because they've been really good, but they don't seem to mess around in state a whole lot. And Spurrier got it going big time, and then Will Muschamp, to his credit, kept it rocking and rolling with the in-state kids. Although I do understand Jordan Birch has left, but Zach Pickens was a big pickup, at the time. There's a lot of good players from in the state that he recruited still on the roster. And then Beamer obviously understood it coming in here. You got to take your top guys, and just this 2026 class, just a great opportunity. I mean, and you have a little bit of everything. You got this big freaky DB. You got 4 offensive linemen. South Carolina hadn't even offered a couple of them. I mean, there's a kid at Timberland right now who I think is probably, if you're looking for a next one, the 2 receivers who are going to roll early. Jamel House is I don't know how there could be like 20 better tight ends in the country than House when you watch him and you watch his ball skills and his movement and stuff like that and the way he plays in space. Then you realize it's sophomore film. And you're like, whoa, it's the kid from Newberry, the tight end. Jaylen McGill, who was at Broome, who went to a private school in Spartanburg, is a running back that you hear some talk from he loves Alabama and Tennessee from people. Well, he's been at Carolina every single weekend, and I think the Gamecocks have done a masterful job. Whatever lead any of these other schools had is evaporated. And it gets hard when a kid leaves his high school, goes to some private school that's kind of focused on recruiting and stuff. But I think they're in good shape there. It's a cycle where if you're the Gamecocks, who do you want in state? You want everybody, because you can keep that core together and still hit the transfer portal and all that stuff. And that you combine that, last year's nucleus, they brought in a freshman is really, really good. Right. But there's not a lot of numbers. It was a small class. You supplement that with a 2025 cycle, good group, some early guys, and then some guys that are in-state guys that are evaluation types, and then 2026 knocks it out of the park. That sets up your foundation for a long time. And then in other news last night, Jared Curtis, the 5-star quarterback from Nashville that was committed to Georgia, decommits. Mm-hmm. And the Gamecocks had him on campus for LSU. And my understanding is he and his dad really liked it. Now, this guy, when you watch his film, he's kind of like, he does these freak, almost, I don't want to say trick plays, guys, but like he's the guy that's going to sit there and act like he's going to run, then fire a ball across his body that's a strike to an open receiver. Plays kind of dog doo-doo competition, to be honest with you. But he kind of reminds me a little bit of a little more showboaty. But if you're looking for a comparison, Quinn Ewers, it's kind of who he is.
Well, that'd be nice.
I think everybody likes Quinn Ewers.
You take that. Right, yeah. Well, you take that.
If you look at kind of the way he plays the game.
Wait a second. Are you telling me that Quinn Ewers and Nikki Mawari are in the 2026 class? This is going to be amazing. The first 14 minutes of this show.
That's why.
That's
why I don't do player comparisons.
Oh,
that's right. That's right.
Well, JC, with that Curtis kid, I think everybody wants to know, a lot of people think it was going to be a media flip somewhere. And I think that's a lot of message board people that are hopeful on a lot of these different schools. But of that top 6 that he released, I mean, they all have quarterbacks committed in 2026 outside of South Carolina, Ohio State, and Alabama. Yeah. Now, do I think this kid ranked top 10 in the country is scared of another quarterback committed to a program in 2026? No. Probably not. Probably doesn't give a rat's behind. And all these programs are going to recruit him hard. But South Carolina, I think, has a puncher's chance here. I think that really good relationship with Dallas.
And he also
online too with where Carolina is in their quarterback room. It sets up well. Yeah.
If you also here's the pitch too. I mean, we just got 2 of the. You tell me, we just got 2 of the best receivers in the country, or you got one and you're gonna get another. You also got Malik Clark, who's one of the best receivers. Your receiving class this year is great. House is a great tight end.
Who are we comparing these guys to? So House is what?
I'm not doing it.
Let's go with Jared Gronk, and then the wide out.
Aaron Hernandez.
What do you want to say?
Yeah, that's
right.
Yeah,
don't need that. Yeah, I was going to go.
He's a more well-behaved Aaron Hernandez.
Let's go with a local guy. Now let's call him Sterling Sharp. So we've got Sterling Sharp in this group. Jared Cooks in this group. The next 2 years is just going to be amazing. Carolina will never lose again.
And they better start as soon as they
schedule the Browns and go.
But you pitch him on that. You pitch him on. There's a lot of. I mean, you're probably Josiah Thompson. Most likely will at least be there for 1 year while you're here. You've continued to recruit well in the offensive line, and you just pitch him on that. And then I guess if you're selling the offense, get you ready for the NFL. Look, Spencer Rattler starting as a rookie.
Don't tell Pat 40 that.
Screw that. Look, that's the latest in bad takes from him.
He's
keep in mind, because his daughter swam at Stanford, which is a personal bias. He wanted to, and they were canceling everything. He wanted to cancel college football in 2020.
I remember that.
Anybody that went out there like that and said we were all going to die because these kids are playing college football can kiss my booty. And it's just the latest
I never
bad
understood
take
sports
on
media
top of bad
wanting
takes.
to cancel sports.
Bottom
job.
line, it's political. Yeah. It's political, and
Very
they're
bizarre.
smarter than everybody else, right? Yeah. Anyway, back to what I was saying. You pitch him on hey, we're going to surround you with a lot of big time players, and I'm sure that's what they're doing. Another thing about him, and then I'll shut up. Curtis, he started his career as a running back, so he's good at doing the passing thing and improvising. But the guy's got some wheels too, and he knows how to naturally run the football. Now, you got to be careful with that when you're playing bad competition because those guys just, they're so much better than everybody else. But he's not a statue back there in the pocket, and that's important these days. So, heck, if you can get him, great. That gives you a lot of hope for the future, and that'll be one of those guys, whether he pans out or not, that everybody will freaking talk about, like Jackson Arnold.
Yeah.
At the very least, he gets you hype for 2 years. Oh my God, where's this guy? So,
well, to JC's point too, I want to mention something that he said earlier I thought was really important, where he talked about all these 26 and 27 guys that the Gamecocks are already in on. Look, I mean, I've been talking about all these guys on my show for 2 years now, and it's crazy that they're not even seniors yet. But I do think this reclassifying thing is going to come into play more and more over the next couple of years. I mean, a couple of years ago, I said, why wouldn't a 5-star quarterback want to reclassify? I'm not saying that Curtis is going to do that, but you're going to get much better practice and reps at the college level than you are playing against, the competition he plays against day in and day out. But you got to get on these kids early and get your evaluations done. That's just the key.
That's a good point. Well, Carolina's getting good news, and on the recruiting trail, they'll hopefully continue to do so. Big time visits are down the road too for the remaining home games. We know that the staff at the Big Spur will be all over that, and we look forward to covering that. Then I'll leave it on this note, and we'll hit a timeout here. Give me all the 6'3", 210-pound corners from Rock Thrill, South Carolina. I'll take all of them and go win football games. You know what you're getting.
Yeah, dude. Those guys pan out, man.
They generally work. Yeah. So this kid, J'Zavien Currence is his name. Wow. If you haven't had a chance to take a peek, he's a top 100 player.
He's good too. Got him. I mean, he looks like a kiss. You look at his picture. He's got a baby. I mean, his kid's still gonna.
He's got a baby.
Grow.
He's got a baby.
Baby face.
Baby face.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Clean that up for old.
I don't know what that
was. The baby. Oh, I got a baby.
Poor kid.
My baby.
Sorry, J'Zavien. We didn't mean to do that to you. All right, it's 11:20.